Hi, and welcome to this recovery masterclass series for when you are post-stroke and you had a stroke. Doesn't matter if it's recent or whether it's a long time ago. Also, this is for when you had other forms of severe brain injury. Now, we kick off with one of the topics that has been the biggest question mark for most of my clients in the last 35 years. Why are you still tired, and why does rest or sleep not fix it? What's going on? This masterclass will take about 30-40 minutes. It's about neurological fatigue, very different fatigue than when you have been working hard. It's about the neurological mechanism behind post-stroke fatigue, and the two false cures, and the one that actually lowers the cost of being there. Now, let's set myself up here. So, if you had a stroke or severe brain injury, there's a good chance that the most exhausting part of the day arrives comes on just like that without warning, and it's usually sometime at the end of the morning or early afternoon, and no amount of sleep that you had the night before seems to have an effect on it. So you've probably been told two things about this. You either rest more, you take a break when you feel you're getting tired, or you just go push right through. Well, that is actually, as you will see, the least likely thing that cures it. So and building your stamina up. So that's not going to be how you solve this. And this is, the cruelty of it. You're almost certainly tried both of them, and both didn't work. And of course, if you can have a stroke or brain injury, and this neurological fatigue does not apply to you, but the majority of you will, 70-80% of stroke survivors or people after a severe brain injury will have to deal with this. So in the coming good half hour, I'm going to tell you something different. I'm going to explain exactly what post-stroke fatigue actually is, the real mechanism, and the one most people are never told. And I'm going to give you one thing already that you can start doing today that begins to change it. And that is not rest, and it's not pushing through, it's not effort, it's something else entirely. So my name's Dr. Arjan Kuipers. I'm a neuroscientist, clinician, post-stroke program developer. Let's start this masterclass. So, rest is not the cure, and effort is not the cure. So I want to give you the whole argument in one sentence before I've earned it through this masterclass, so you know where we're going. So we started this off by giving away what post-stroke fatigue cannot be cured by. But lowering the cost is actually the cure. So lowering the cost of what you are doing. So we can do something about it, but it is often very counterintuitive. So everything I'm going to show you today comes back to that single idea. You don't get less tired by resting more, and you don't get less tired by trying harder. You get less tired when the things you do every day stop costing your brain so much energy to perform. So we have to tweak how you go about things when you do things. So hold on to that thought. And by the end of this session, it will make more sense, or even complete sense to you. And even more important, you will know what to do with it or start doing with it. So Before I explain the mechanism, I need to clear something away because it is on almost every stroke survivor's or brain injury survivor's shoulder. This fatigue is not about you being lazy and have to try harder. It's not a lack of motivation, for sure not. It's not a sign that you stop trying or that you've given up. So I understand this, and I want every caretaker that listens to this also to understand that. It's not ordinary tiredness. It's the kind that a good night's sleep or a power nap does not resolve. So post-stroke fatigue is a real thing, it's measurable, it's a physiological thing. It is one of the most common consequences of stroke, and this is the part that makes it so isolating. It's one of the least explained. People around you can't see it. And often your own clinicians haven't had time to explain it properly. So you're left to assume it's somehow a failing of character, which it is really not. So that is clear. It's a feature of how an injured brain, your brain, produces and spends energy. So it's more of a what happens when you try to do the same thing that you did before. So once you understand that, everything starts to change. You start to understand why you get fatigued, the mechanisms behind it, you can start doing something about it. So, because the mechanism behind it is something that we can work with and we can work through it. So, let's name the actual reasons. There are 4. I'm not going to spend as much time on all 4 of them. I will do that in other presentations. I try to go to the most important ones that you can do something about starting today. Together they explain almost everything that you feel. So, first one, inefficient wiring. So before your stroke, the movements you made all day, walking, reaching, standing, they run along highways, neural highways, fast, automated, cheap. And after a stroke, a lot of that same traffic is rerouted onto slow, winding country roads. You still get there, but it takes way more fuel, longer, it's inefficient, because you have to do everything through this narrow pathway. So the extra fuel is your energy. 2, there is a persistent low-grade inflammation, so-called neuroinflammation. So after the acute event, the brain often stays in a low-grade inflammatory state, which you initially need to clear out debris, but the immune system of the head tends to be activated, stay on, which really importantly, it suppresses the very plasticity you need to recover. It makes you tired, it makes you inactive, it makes you brain fogged. Not going to talk too much about this. There is definitely the things that I'm talking about, how you exercise, low-grade exercise. Sleep is the number 1 cure for this persistent inflammation. We will spend an entire masterclass on this neuroinflammation, all the things you can do in everyday life, but know that this plays a role, and depending on who you are, if it's one of the bigger factors or it trickles through in a less impactful way. So, number 3, we have the executive takeover. Movements that used to be automatic are now being supervised by your prefrontal cortex, your thinking brain, where you normally make decisions, you think about, you plan, you organize, but you start using it to do everyday tasks. That's not what it was supposed to be. So it's your executive thing. So just imagine having to consciously manage every step. This is what our clients say. This is what Linda tells me. I get out of bed and let's see, I have to manage something in the system. Yeah, we'll just continue. We'll just share the screen again. So we have the executive takeover, and 4 is the characteristic curve. Your energy doesn't drain in a smooth, gentle line. It is not like that this happens. It actually, you start the day off with a full tank, and then suddenly it starts dropping off. So you have this like tipping point. And this is where it becomes interesting. Once you know where your tipping point is, you can plan the majority of your task before this tipping point. But mostly you are too late by recognizing it, and then it will affect how you can think, how you can multitask, and it will affect your motorics. It will affect how you can walk, how you can speak, and etc., and how you think. So if you stay below it, then you're fine, and if you cross it, you know, you will get this dip, so you get this big crash. So 4 of the mechanisms that play a role, none of them is about willpower, all of them are about cost. Let's see. Now, I can tell you why the 2 pieces of advice you've been given don't work. Rest when you get tired, or push through, because each one aims at the wrong target. So rest more assumes your fatigue is an empty fuel tank, and that if you just stop and refill by resting, you'll be restored. But it's not an empty tank. It's actually a system that's spending too much for everything it does. You can rest all you want. The moment you get up, the overspending starts again. So try harder, build your stamina back up is worse. And I want to be very careful here, because it sounds so reasonable. When you push through fatigue, you are forcing all that traffic even harder down the country roads. That leads to accidents and crashes. So it's a very good analogy. You deepen the inefficient patterns and you worsen the stress state. So you really get into a worked up stress state, and you inflame, you actually make the neuroinflammation worse and the environment that suppresses recovery. So if you want to recover, pushing harder will actually make it worse. So you are, with the best intentions, digging the hole deeper. And you know, I'm not accusing any of you, but I just want you to be very aware that pushing harder is not the answer. So both answers fail for the same reason. Neither one lowers the cost. And cost is the only thing that matters. So if you know what costs you and how to spend it wiser, you don't have to come to that point where you crash and you experience this really deep fatigue. So it's all about efficiency. So here's the reframe that the whole approach rests on. If the problem is that everything costs your brain too much, then the solution is not to do less, and it's not to force more. That must be clear by now. It is to make everything cost less, so you can do more without spending all that energy. And the good news, the genuinely hopeful news, and this is what we see on a daily basis when we address these things, is that the efficiency is a skill that can be learned, it can be trained. And there are 4 broad levers. And I'll show you the first one live in a moment, so you can start applying this today. So, first one is calming the engine, bringing your nervous system out of the chronic stress state that it's stuck in. That's almost a universal thing I see after stroke, post-stroke, after severe brain injury, that the nervous system goes in overdrive. It goes into the fight-flight mode. And here is the elegant part, so to speak. The same shift that lowers your energy cost is the shift that improves your brain's capacity to heal. So if we can calm the resting state down, it will cost you less energy. And this is one of the easiest things to do, as you will learn in a moment. So the second thing is re-automating movement. So gradually handing movement back to the lower brain part, so you don't have to think about what you're doing. You don't have to think about every step that you take, so your cortex can stop micromanaging every step. That's the structural cure, and it lives in the foundation work. So it's really relearning how you do things and how you build up movement, calming the system down first of all. So we calm the system down, the engine, we re-automate movement. And the third one is pacing. Learn to spend deliberately. So you think out where to spend your energy. So once we have learned where our tipping point is, and everyone has one and it is recognizable, instead of repeatedly go over it and crash afterwards, because then there's no way back. The fourth one is to really protect your recovery environment. Sleep, sensory overload, too much sensory input, noise, visual input, stress, etc., and all the biology behind it, and all of which quietly set your baseline cost. So all those things in your environment, if there's too much noise, so to speak, too much light, too much sound, too much going on, there's too many demands on you, it will drain you silently and will lead to the tipping point coming on earlier. Now, there's 4 levers, and let me hand the first one to you first. So this is something you can start doing today. So the fastest way to lower the costs, the energy cost, is to get out of this alarm phase. So, and I don't want you to leave this session with only an idea. I want to leave it so you already felt a little bit how it can be done. So we're going to do the first lever together right now, and it takes about 60 seconds. So a stroke-injured nervous system very often gets stuck in a low-level alarm state. Like the autonomic nervous system goes in sympathetic overdrive. That's the opposite of parasympathetic nervous system, the vagus stimulation, the calm, rest, and digest system. So it's stuck in a low-level alarm state and a chronic background fight or flight. So that state is really expensive. It burns energy just sitting there, and it's one of the biggest contributors to the cost we've been talking about. And the fastest way to lower that cost is to signal to your nervous system through your breath that it's safe to stand down, that it is safe to ease off. Excuse me. This isn't just relaxation for relaxation's sake. This is the autonomic recalibration, and it has a real neurological rationale, and which I'll name as we go. So get comfortable. If you can sit or lie down, sit tall. You drop your shoulders. And take it easy. So let's do this together. So this is the 60-second reset that you can, whenever you feel that stress is building, that the alarm phase is coming on, that there's too much happening, this is what you have to teach yourself. So follow me, there's just 4 simple beats. First, settle down. Breathe in. What you can do is actually a physiological sigh if you really feel stress coming on. You have 2 quick breaths in and 1 long one out. This is one of the most powerful ways to settle down your stress system. So sit tall, relax, don't breathe, don't tighten up. Let your jaw soften, drop your shoulders and let your hands just rest, or lie down and let your breath drop down into your belly. So we're just lowering the breathing rather than having a stress breath up here. So, two. You lost the presentation. Let's continue here. Sorry for that. It gave you time to relax a little bit. I had to regain my breath as well. So just sit tall, drop your shoulders, drop your breathing. And the second thing you're going to do is, and this is the active ingredient, lengthen the exhale. So breathe in quietly through your nose and breathe out slowly. And make that out breath longer. You can do that through your nose. Nose breathing is more decreasing stress, or you can breathe out through your mouth. That's fine, whatever you feel comfortable with. So in through your nose, drop the breath to your belly, and long out, longer out than in. And that long, slow exhale is the direct signal to your nerve system. This is all neuroscience, that the danger has passed and it can power down. So just breathing in consciously through your nose. Longer out, and you can pause in between. Excuse me. Signals the nerve system that all is safe and that you can relax. The third, you just repeat it, unhurried. Let's do a few together. In through the nose, pause, and longer out. No big dramatic breaths. If you ever feel lightheaded, just return to normal breathing. Gentle always wins. No overpowering anything. And fourth, put your attention to the breathing. Don't put attention to it. Just put your attention to the breathing and you calm yourself down. There's no wrong or right with it. Just notice your breathing. Just be aware, be mindful about your breathing. This is not mindfulness or meditation. This is just a physiological mechanism. Just notice, maybe the shoulders dropped a little, maybe your mind went a little bit quieter just by his breathing exercise. And that's your nervous system. It's a small shift. That's your nervous system stepping out of the alarm. And every second it spends out of an alarm is energy, and you're no longer wasting it. That's efficiency made real in 60 seconds. Now, this is the thing. If you can learn to calm yourself down throughout the day, you become good at it, I can promise you. I have to do this many times a day to settle down again. It will save you so incredibly much energy. And it's an art. If only one breath, or even if stress really is building up, the 2 rapid breaths in, long breath out, the danger passes, it shifts, it drops, your shoulders drop, and you immediately save a lot of energy. So make this into a habit. Notice what's happening with your breathing and apply it many times during the day, if only for 30 or 60 seconds. So there's one specific brain I want to name in particular, because it catches everyone off guard, and we call it the cognitive motor tax. What does that mean? So think about when you're walking, which is often a full with effort when you had a stroke, and you're holding a conversation, or you had other brain injury and you're engaged in a deep conversation, or you're distracted. Standing at a counter while listening to someone, for example, in the kitchen, or making a cup of tea while answering a question. Before your stroke, all of this had no consequences. It was all automated, and your mind was available to talk, because everything ran automated, and the brain could do what it was supposed to do, especially the executive parts. But after a stroke or severe brain injury, when your thinking brain is already supervising other tasks like movement, adding a second task doesn't add a little load. It multiplies it. It is not just one extra task, it multiplies it, a multifold, because your brain is already occupied with micromanaging other things. The 2 tasks are now fighting over the same scarce resource. That's exactly why the fog tends to roll in at the busiest, most demanding moments of your day. The moments when life is asking you to do several things at once. And here's the key. The answer is not to stop doing 2 things and shrink your life down. The answer is to re-automate the movement underneath, to get it running on those lower, cheaper pathways again, so that it stops competing with your thinking. And that's precisely what the foundation work is built to do. So when we address this, we not only settle the system down, we are going to lower the costs by doing everything more efficient. Before anything else, with every movement, every task you undertake. It's not just being aware of it, we can do things about it. So this is the 4th lever, so the pacing strategy. So the word pacing has a bad reputation, and to a lot of survivors, it sounds like a surrender, like being told once again to do less and accept a smaller life than you were used to. Like, I want to reclaim it, but because real pacing is the opposite, it's a skill of spending deliberately. It has 3 parts. First, know your curve. Remember the energy curve and the drop off, the tipping point where the energy really drop, which usually end of the morning, sometime in the morning or early afternoon. So first know where this happens in your curve. So get honest about your own day. When does energy actually start to fall? And where's that tipping point you keep crossing without noticing? And second, we front load, we start to do more in the good window, not when we know we are close to the tipping point. So the part where you have the richest stretch of energy, and usually that is earlier in the day. And sometimes it's different, but usually it is. Spend it on what matters most to you, not on administration, not on answering calls, not on the chores you could do also when you are depleted. Put your best hours against your best life. So what is most important for you, you do first. And third, and this is the hard discipline, stop before you hit the wall. That's not always easy. When you hit the fatigue before it, you stop while you still feel okay, fine. I say it this way in our work. Yeah. You stop before the fatigue. You never go through it. And that single rule, more than anything else, is what keeps you off the floor the next day. Yeah. So pacing isn't doing less, it's deciding, being more purposeful on purpose, what your energy is for, what you're going to spend it against. Yeah, before it crashes and then you can't do much, especially the things that matter to you. So now let's take a step back and look at what we've done in this short time. And again, may seem boring, but this is really crucial if you start to understand the concepts that I just put across, even though they may seem simple to you. And I can promise you, most people think they are simple, but they are not, because you're still crashing. We started with a symptom that probably felt like a personal fail, something that has to be endured. And we've turned it into something else, a mechanism with 4 clear causes: inefficient wiring, the ongoing neuroinflammation in the background, sometimes in the foreground, the executive takeover, the parts of the brain that are not supposed to consciously be meddling with movement, for example, or doing multiple things at the same time. They take over. They have to be involved in it. And the fatigue curve and the tipping point. And if you spend your energy before the tipping point, gives you a whole different day and not the crash that often happens. So the moment fatigue becomes a mechanism, it stops being a life sentence. You start to understand your fatigue and can start to change things. So we have a set of levers that can do things with this fatigue. So we can calm down the engine. Yeah, we can calm down. We go to a more restful, peaceful state. We already practiced that a little bit. And you probably noticed that things started to relax. We can re-automate the movement underneath. So we don't have that energy expenditure in our executive parts. And we pace deliberately to our own energy curve before the drop-off, before the tipping point, and protect the ground your recovery grows in. So none of that has to do with rest. Nothing. Yeah, none of it is forcing yourself through it at all. I mean, that is the worst thing you can do. And all of it is about lowering the costs. And that's the whole approach that you should follow to get rid of this post-stroke or neurological fatigue after brain injury. Now, how do we go from that simple reset that I just taught you, that you have to make into a habit? So how do we go from one reset like that to a complete system? So where do we go from here? Well, today you felt one of the levers works, even if we spend a little bit of time on it, that really matters. And I can promise you, breathing is one of the things that everyone or most of our clients do wrong. When they start exercising, the breathing stops and they go into stress mode. It's one of the easiest way to change that. A single reset isn't recovery. So the real change comes from turning that one moment into a more durable, self-governing system. So your autonomic reset builds into the day, self-governing system, your autonomic reset, the movement underneath re-automated, your pacing mapped precisely to your own curve, and your environment should be protected. Not too much noise, not too many tasks, etc. Enough sleep, the right circumstances. And the word your, I want to emphasize, it matters there, because your fatigue has a signature that's specific to you. You have to map it. It's different than the other stroke survivors, the other person with a brain injury. Your particular curve, your particular triggers, the exact point where you tip over. So the next step, if you'd like, is a short assessment that maps that signature and shows you where to begin. That's what we do with our clients, and that is what you can learn also. And I want you to be clear about what that is and isn't. It is a conversation. It's not a commitment. It's a way of seeing your own pattern, opening your eyes to what's really happening, where you spend your energy, where you crash, etc. And see it so clear that you can work with it. You can work through it, but you can work with it. And if that is something that you value, the link below this video or in the email after it is for you. That's where you go and find out how you can put this all to work for you. So, and I want to leave this small masterclass with the thing I want you to keep. This the one takeaway I want you, to leave this masterclass with. You or your partner was never lazy, and you never gave up. That's why you're here. And you have been doing something genuinely hard every single day, and being surprised by your incredible fatigue, fighting it maybe. You were running an expensive nervous system and paying for it with exhaustion. And that deserves respect, not shame. Yeah. You just were not aware what was really at play. And it can change. That's the good news. It's not necessarily easy, but it can change. And once you learn the 4 levers for yourself, what your energy signature is, it's not through resting more, and it's not through forcing yourself through, it's through lowering the cost. And once you know that signature for yourself, you really can start making the change. So rest is not the cure, and effort is not the cure. Lowering the energy cost is the real cure. Take care of yourself. I'll see you in the next masterclass. Thank you for your time.